You want the husband, you want the nice things, you want the house, you want the promotions. Unfortunately, you have to maintain them. And because every time you crack a next level, it requires the next level. And so you have to start understanding that the external pursuit is never ending. It is its own cage.
Okay, everyone, welcome Keren to Quality Queen Control. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been worth the wait already.
Yes, we definitely had a bit of a interesting start, very delayed technical difficulties, but nonetheless, we are here. So your background is actually very remarkable. Doing my research on you, from Israeli defense, forces to C-suite, like coach. I want to know what personal experiences of yours shaped your approach around leadership and what ultimately led to your fulfillment in that way?
I'm so happy that you started with this question, Asha, because literally only one person has asked me about my experience in the IDF. And it gives me an opportunity to say that I believe that everything I learned about leadership, I learned in the Army. I learned humility and I learned service to something bigger than myself. And those are truly the two biggest things that you can learn as a leader. It's not about you, it's about something bigger than you. And it is an honor to serve. It is a privilege to be in that position, not an entitlement. And that has truly informed my mindset and my understanding of not only leadership, but even my work as a coach. This is not about me, and this is about service to something bigger than myself. And it is an honor and a privilege to get to walk beside you on your journey.
I love that approach because it's so funny. I feel like right now where we're at in the social climate is people are realizing the difference between like selfish content and also offering value. And oftentimes people tend to view leadership sometimes like a dictatorship, yes, as opposed to actually serving,
yes,
what it's really ultimately about. So was there a defining moment where you would say that you realized that traditional success wasn't necessarily enough, right?
Yes.
It was actually time to break out of the gilded cage.
Nice plug there, sister.
Right.
My new book, Gilded. I want to say two things. The first is, yes, there was a big breakthrough moment for me. And number two, I lived that breakthrough moment again and again and again. I'll start by the breakthrough moment that led to my practice and led to Gilded. I am a classic overachiever, like many of your listeners. What I mean by classic overachiever is super intense, obsessive, type A student, go get him type personality. We are born this way. Any freak show out there who is like this knows this. We don't need to be told to do stuff. We go out and we do it and we give 10,000%. Unfortunately, that produced a very relentless pursuit of ambition that went out of control by the time I was in my very early 30s. I had to achieve the absolute best. I had to have the C-suite position. I had to have the tall husband. This was very important to me. I had to have the below 120 pounds weight class and aesthetic control. I'm 5'5", so 120 pounds is quite low, just letting you know out there. And so I do this for a very aggressive period of my life. At least 15 years of my life are dedicated to this hustle, to this climb. And then it produces in me what it produces in all other overachievers, not only relentless, obsessive, anxious pursuit, but also lying, the facade, not dictatorship, what you said in leadership, but lying to maintain that appearance, subsuming my kindness and my lovingness and my warmth in order to maintain that position. Telling people nonsense on Instagram about how cool and awesome my life was in order to maintain that position of awesomeness. And I realized very quickly that this was a gilded cage. I realized it because first and foremost, while I was living in a gorgeous house and had a C-suite position, I liked neither of them. The house was in Zurich, which is a terrible and boring city. The marriage was a complete sham. I was in an abusive relationship. And while the job was pretty good, I was at the head of the marketing team of a luxury brand, sensational, very Devil Wears Prada. It was also very Devil Wears Prada, which, let me remind you, was kind of a nightmare and definitely not living my soul's purpose here on earth, right? Like just exhausting myself, burning the candle at both ends, and kind of behaving in an aggressive, social climby way, and at the end of the day, going home to someone I legit could not stand. This is a gilded cage. This is a cage that is very shiny and very pretty from the outside, but is actually fake gold. Now, you tell me, do you prefer real gold or fake gold?
Real gold all the way.
Real gold all the way. So one day I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm done with this nonsense illusion. And I burned it all to the ground, which was super brave of me. And today I help people do this again and again, which brings me to the part where I talk to you about how I reject this now on the fly. Listen, in the coaching industry, the podcasting industry, a lot of it's an entertainment industry sitch, right? In other words, people are lying to you all the time, all day, every day. I just saw somebody just talk about, I don't know, their $600,000 a month. And I was sitting there going, I feel like that's not accurate. Not because I have never seen it and people are not sensationally successful. It just makes no sense to be in that stance constantly and to talk about self-promotion constantly, rather than to be in what we talked about in the initial phase of this talk, which is service to something bigger than yourself. And it is an honor to be here, not look at me, look how awesome I am. You should be like me to be here, which is a completely different stance. This is it. This is my mindset now. This is my religion now. We're here.
Oh my gosh, there are just so many gems with everything that you just said. It's so funny. Actually, I do understand that culture that you're speaking of, where you see the, certain individuals, they post online and something, I think it's a gift that maybe like you and I have and other individuals possess that same gift, but something about it just feels intuitively like, I don't think that that's the case.
I don't buy it. That's right.
Absolutely don't. And so it's funny how, great minds really genuinely do think alike. Now, speaking of the gilded cage, I mean, this is so perfect and on brand for me, being in my early 30s and just navigating through life. A lot of the things that I thought that I wanted, things are manifesting for me in a completely different way than I entirely imagined. And so what I thought was this perfect thing or said thing, I'm realizing is nothing of the sort. And so navigating through those challenges and whatever, life is throwing at me, I'm learning like, wow, authenticity, one, speaks for itself. And that you being true to yourself and showcasing that is one of the best things that you can do. And true leadership, people will follow you when you are genuinely confident, because in the end, the facade is always going to fall down. So I want to say even kudos to you for burning that down and building something authentic to you. I honestly, hats off to you. And I really, really admire that. So
thank you. I couldn't live a lie any longer. I just wanted to underline this. There's a quote that opens my book that I truly love and that breaks my heart at the same time. It's by Matthew Perry, who played Chandler Bing in Friends. He said, I think you actually have to have all your dreams come true to realize that they're the wrong dreams. In some cases, we don't anticipate it and really go about discovering what our genuine preferences are, Asha, and then create and cultivate a life of our own preference. In some cases, it's like what happened to me. You get everything you want, you look around and you go, you've got to be kidding me with this nonsense, and you have to burn it down. Either way, I want everybody listening, anybody who reads my book, to just find the courage to find that authenticity. It does take enormous courage in a world that wants something from you and wants to dictate to you what life really is about, and the smallness that you need to accept in order to line up with society, to have the courage and the chutzpah, frankly, the audacity to say, no, I will discover who I am and I will do it on purpose.
Oh my goodness. I will discover who I am and I will do it on purpose. Intentionality is everything. And I can imagine too, having the perfect marriage and having all these things, and then people thinking that this is how it's going and they're viewing you on social media and all the things. And then all of a sudden you burn everything down. That takes an immense amount of courage. It's easier said than done. It's easy to listen to this story and be like, yeah, girl, go. But if you actually think about, wow, like ending a marriage and switching gears in a new career and I imagine people are looking at you like, are you crazy?
Everybody thought I was insane. My best friend called and asked me if I needed money. My old boss felt really sorry for me, actually said, you look really pathetic. And I still went, I'm sorry you feel that way, and kept going.
Because there's an intuitive knowing that certain individuals possess, like yourself, where you know that you have to continue to go after what you know you were going after. It's
Yes.
tunnel vision, it's eye on the prize.
Exactly. Exactly. Eye on the prize. And also, I didn't care because I knew that what I was walking away from was false.
Yes, alignment and authenticity will always matter more, and there's a way greater sense of fulfillment. So I know you mentioned a little bit about your upbringing. So how did your upbringing in your early career teach you about the value of overachievement? And what would you say, at what point did you start to feel like it was really like, okay, this is a trap?
Yeah. Well, I think all of us grow up in a certain degree of trap. I have been, very richly blessed. I have very wonderful parents who truly love me. That is the luckiest blessing in all of life. I think something that many people overlook. And a great education, a world-class education, and an exceptionally rich upbringing. These are things I don't scoff at. At the same time, I grew up in the exact same society you grew up in. And that society will tell you that you're good if you achieve a certain amount of grades, accolades, status, and if you hit certain benchmarks, which are the same no matter which culture you grow up in. If you're not married by the time, I don't know, you're 27, you're missing the boat here. And if you haven't bought a house by the time you're 35, you're missing a boat here. And if you haven't found your purpose or your calling, then you're clearly a drifter or an aimless person who doesn't know what to do with their life. In other words, society has lots of expectations of us. By the time I'm 31, I've done everything check, quote unquote, right. And I didn't get what I wanted. I was unhappy. I was miserable. I felt trapped. I felt like the confines of this were a complete joke. And I didn't just get subpar results. I got bad results. An abusive relationship is a nightmare of a life. It's truly hell on earth. So I started to get the confidence to defy the societal expectation because I knew the expectation to be wrong. I got lucky in that sense. Many people sort of kind of get away with it, right? Like they get boredom. They don't get misery. Boredom, many people can deal with.
Right.
Misery, very hard to deal with. I got misery. I got lucky. And at that point, I start going, you've got to be kidding me with this nonsense. And I'm way too good for this, frankly. And that's it. I started to apply my same bravado, my same excitement, my same overachieving enthusiasm in the direction of my dreams. And it took a couple of years. But what I like to say to people when they're about to transition their life is, it does take courage, but it also takes enormous faith. And to that end, I can help you. I can tell you that if you saw the size of the blessing that was coming, you would go running. You would let God do his thing, and you would understand that he really does have your back, and just go.
I love that so much. And how would you even say you find strength in navigating the naysayers? Because I can just relate to you in so many ways, and it's difficult sometimes when you're in a transitional period in space. Sometimes that noise feels like it's a little too loud, and so it can easily feel discouraging where you're already trying to figure out the direction that you're going, and it's a scary change. And then you have people that are questioning you along the way. How did you find strength in keeping your eye on the prize in moments like that?
There are two ways. The first is to understand what faith is. Faith is certainty beyond reason. When you start to make it about reason, you are, in fact, rejecting faith. So certainty beyond reason is the most important thing. And this is a cultivated practice. I am lucky. I am a person of faith. So it's easier for me. But even in those moments when my faith was tested, I Lieutenant Dan this. Of course, you remember the movie Forrest Gump?
Yes.
In the movie Forrest Gump, there's a big storm. And instead of freaking out, Lieutenant Dan goes up to the mast and starts yelling, "You call this a storm?" That is ultimate faith. That is making peace with the universe. That is ultimate faith. The second thing I want to say is, and this might bump some people out who are in the transition, it's that you will actually have to lose some people. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but it's true. On the climb up, there can be absolutely no non-cheerleaders. The great Oprah herself said this, and it took me a while to listen to her, but she was right, which is if there is even a hint of suppression, of insulting, or of jealousy, you must have the discipline to say, thank you very much. Your company is not good for me right now. Mm-hmm. We are going only on one direction, and that direction is up. Cheerleaders only. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it. That doesn't mean sycophants. It doesn't mean people who will say yes to everything you do. It just means in general, people who are like, I believe in you and I'm ready to support you in any way I can. That's just how it is.
That was very, very revelatory for me. I feel like that's exactly where I'm at in my life, where I had that revelation recently. And I was like, honestly, cheerleaders only. I have no time in my life for any sort of nonsense, doubt, or anything. I have to keep my eye on the prize. So hearing you say that was just so much confirmation. So in your book, Gilded, you describe that the gilded cage, right? Which obviously many high achievers, we do tend to live in. It can, can you actually break down that metaphor? What does that look like from the inside?
Here's what it looks like. It looks like you started to pursue things. You want the husband, you want the nice things, you want the house, you want the promotions. Unfortunately, they turn into their own cage because you have to maintain them. And because every time you crack a next level, it requires the next level. Has that ever happened to you? Of course it has. I've worked with so many entrepreneurs. They crack 7 figures. Now let's go to 8. 8 figures? What next? What's the next creative project? Mm-hmm. In that sense, one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen was Mindy Kaling's show called All My Problems Solved Forever, which was one episode in which she got engaged. It was hilarious because obviously she meant that all your problems being solved forever by this one thing actually will create an entire new set of things that you desire. And so you have to start understanding that the external pursuit is never ending. It is its own cage. And that's why in the metaphor, my book, the golden cage is actually open. It's open because you are the one who can break yourself free. And you can break yourself free by tuning instead of to the external chase, to the internal chase. The internal, the knowing of self, the development of faith, the cultivation of true resilience and mindset, they're never ending and they will never disappoint you. They will set you free. That's where we want to turn.
Oh my gosh, wow, that actually makes so much sense. Me being a woman of faith myself, I totally resonate with that. And I understand that so well. Why do you think that high performers who seemingly have it all, why do you think that they struggle with fulfillment more than most people?
Because we get rewarded for it more than most people. Because we achieve more than most people. You achieve more than most people. People are going to reward you disproportionately. If you're a person of extreme beauty, you will find accolades for your beauty very, very young. That means you will become truly possessed by the need to maintain that beauty. This becomes your own cage. This is why it becomes so much harder then to lose the beauty. To maintain the beauty and to lose inevitably with age, as we all do, the beauty. It's exactly the same with the attainment of any other form of external power, like money. The number one thing that I hear from wealth managers is that really, really rich people are terrified of losing the money. This is hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious. Instead of focusing on enjoying the prosperity, expanding the prosperity, living well with the prosperity. No. Let's defend it. Let's freak out about it. Let's worry about it. Again, because your ego has become tied to it. This is not good.
Wow. Your ego has become tied to it. Okay, so what would you say are some surprising signs that someone might be living in a gilded cage, even if they are successful on paper?
Well, the most I think surprising signs are the feelings. The feelings that come with this are not exhaustion and sobbing and depression. They're actually much, much more subtle. Aimlessness, boredom, numbing, 7 hours on Instagram, shopaholism, any form of relentless, aimless fidgeting, essentially, is the biggest sign that you're there. You're screwed.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That is definitely food for thought. I'm sure many of us listening can definitely resonate with that. Wow. This is just,
because I
wow.
always tell people, like, you're going to be very likely to ignore that and think that's nothing. And I was going to be the first person to say, that's not what life's supposed to feel like. You're supposed to have a really, really good time. You're supposed to have fun around here. There's no time for scrolling. This is awesome. You don't actually need the hits. If you do, then there's something there, and you would do very well to inquire your mind and to sit with it and to understand what's there so that you can crack through that upper limit that's keeping you in this trap, frankly.
Wow, I love that. Okay, so along those lines, let's talk about burnout.
Yeah.
And how do we pretty much redefine our success? So you've coached Olympic athletes, Fortune 500 executives.
Yes.
How do these high performing clients typically describe burnout for them?
Well, yeah. So I told you before that in my case, I got lucky, which is trauma. Trauma and misery are burnout. Burnout is the same thing. It's extreme exhaustion. It's not regular aimlessness. It's, I can't do this anymore. I can't function anymore. If somebody's there, they're extraordinarily lucky because you can't ignore it. You just can't. Mm-hmm. An athlete who is wiped out cannot function. They have to actually turn into it. An executive who, first of all, has just been slapped with divorce papers and who's lost 20 points on the market for the company is definitely going to have a come to Jesus moment. In that case, I always say these are the easiest people for coaching because they know they cannot not do this. However, if you have somebody who just doesn't understand why their results are not improving and why they're not happy with really big successes and why it's never enough and what's going on with my team, that's something to look at too. And that is a form of burnout, but it's preemptive. You're catching it just a little before you fall off the cliff. This is ideal. This is ideal because you are now being proactive about your own life rather than waiting for life to do what it did to me, which is just knock you off to the point where you absolutely need the help. You can start to engage with the subtle signs of burnout before burnout actually happens.
Wow. So what would you say your advice is to help them begin to shift that perspective? Because I'm sure the advice is tailored to that person's specific niche, or would you say that inevitably it's all principally the same?
It's all principally the same. There are no exceptions to the universe. Asha, listen, I'd love to meet the exception to the universe. One day when I do meet Gandhi, that'll be so totes amazed. But for now, most people are pretty much the same. Early signs of burnout can be very subtle at first, but catching them early is really crucial. And I want to give everybody sort of a roadmap of what to do here. And by the way, my book is essentially a 12-step program. I was going to call it like Alcoholics Anonymous, Workaholics Anonymous, but my husband came up with Gilded, and I thought that was much better. Mm-hmm. My new husband, who is, by the way, the most delicious person who ever lived.
I love that.
The first thing to start watching out for is what I said, which is emotional or mental fatigue. They are very subtle. Tiredness is subtle. Anxiety, many times, is just subtle. It's just like this weird restlessness, like a hum all the time, right? So if you start to find yourself sighing a little too much, not really interested in doing a lot, and numbing with alcohol and pills, of course, is the biggest one, but numbing in all other forms, shopping and scrolling, those are behaviors that I would start to really pay attention to. And so is cynicism, just being one of those people who is kind of a buzzkill. You and I obviously are now not tolerating buzzkills, but if you find yourself on the side where you are a buzzkill, you may want to take a look at the fact that you're a little more irritable than usual. And then here comes the first step. It's after you notice this, the first step is to admit that you have a problem. Just like in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you've ever spoken to a person who suffers from addiction, they usually say the same thing, which is, I got this. I have this under control. I can quit whenever I want, right? Well, guess what? Overachievers are the same. I got this. It's fine. I have it under control. So the first step is, I don't have this under control, and this is very uncomfortable for me. That's the first thing, is this is uncomfortable. Acknowledge the symptoms, acknowledge the subtle sign, acknowledge the physical symptoms. The second thing is to do something about it, and here's what you need to do. Fess up. The second thing I say to do in the book is stop lying. Name the emotions. Name the withdrawal. Name the symptoms. And number 3, avoid the compulsion to work harder to resolve it. This will allow you to really basically follow my book and the guidance all the way out of this. But this one is really, really important, because what will happen to overachievers is they'll automatically say, all right, I'll solve it. I'll work harder and I'll solve it, right? Well, it's like I always say, Asha, if you start suspecting that sex isn't working out for you, don't do it harder. It's exactly the same with burnout. If you start suspecting that your hustle is not paying off, don't try harder. It's not going to work. You will have to withdraw. You will have to go within. You will have to seek help, and you will have to follow the either inner journey that I prescribe in the book, or go on an inner journey with a talented coach, or in some cases, a very talented therapist.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I definitely can say that it's so funny. I honestly had this other revelation where I realized, I was like, you know what? I really don't feel like God wants me to feel like I'm going so hard trying to pursue, because no opportunity that I feel like God is giving me and that's ordained is going to feel this like.
Yes, that's right.
Relentless.
I always tell my clients who are people of faith, if you really are of faith, why are you working so hard?
Wow.
You really trust him. What are you doing here?
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That was note to self. That was note to self for me. Okay. So let's
I love being a Jewish person telling a Christian that you're smoting God. That was real sass right there.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So about perfectionism, for so many driven women,
yes,
obviously, myself included, it is something that I guess we do tend to wear as a badge of honor. So how can we begin to kind of like loosen the grip on that? Because like you said earlier, we do get rewarded for the things that we achieve. So how do we become okay with kind of it feels uncomfortable because it feels like you're just coasting. So yes. How do you find the balance?
Only a perfectionist would say such things, my dear friend, because the opposite of perfectionism is not laziness. It is not complete. It's not black or white. The antithesis of perfectionism is to do things very well, but with chill. You're still going to do them. So the first thing I want to break free from is teach people the difference between, or to help you break free from perfectionism is to help people understand the difference between perfectionism and high standards. High standards are fantastic. Everybody loves them. You should have them. I'm a big fan. Obviously, I coach overachievers. But high standards don't hurt. Perfectionism does. High standards are the expectancy of the best, doing our best, allowing ourselves to want the best and to achieve the best without hurting ourselves, without breaking yourself over the fact that your somersault was not a complete 10 out of 10 this time. That is the beginning of understanding real achievement, sustainable achievement, consistency, which is sometimes 80%, sometimes 20%. My best varies, versus perfectionism, which will blow itself up. If you hold yourself to 100% all day, every day, I promise you, because the mind cannot tolerate that degree of punishment, you will run out of steam. The second thing is the lengthier thing that you can start to apply to perfectionism, which is self-compassion. What if you assumed that the Bible and the Old Testament, for that matter, were correct, and that we are all perfectly made in his image? Then what exactly are you perfecting around here? Why wouldn't you work instead on compassion, on forgiveness? God has never condemned you. Why are you condemning yourself? Why not instead celebrate yourself? Speak to yourself lovingly, with compassion, with kindness. When you start that practice, cultivating in addition to your height standards, I'm telling you, you're going to become unstoppable because you're going to become one of those freak shows like me who's actually nice to themselves. You did good today, Keren. Well done. Keep it up.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Like, I don't know why this like makes me want to cry. Like this, I feel like you're
We're
like,
always the opposite. Most people like you and I usually do until the age of, I don't know, 30. We beat ourselves up all the time. You screwed up. I can't believe you're not there yet. Why aren't you making 600 grand a month? Whatever nonsense that is. Instead of just doing the exact opposite, which I've learned to do over the last decade. You're doing great, sweetie, as my real mom, Kris Jenner, likes to say. You're doing great. You got this. You know how much more firepower you have with that kind of wind in your back?
Mhm. And it's so funny too, because there's such an interesting dichotomy how on one hand, you know, to put it in context with myself, I'm like, you know what, cheerleaders only, but I have to be the cheerleader for myself too.
Well, you'd be lying if you weren't.
Yeah.
You cannot be incongruent. The universe only hears integrity. It only hears honesty. So if you're mean to yourself, but really nice to other people, then you're lying.
That's true. That's true. Wow. You're honestly, you're incredible. You are absolutely incredible. How can leaders, especially women in male dominated industries, unlearn the belief that their worth is tied to their constant output or their performance?
Well, the reversal of imposter syndrome, which is, of course, extraordinarily common, is to know your leverage. Many people are just focused on the gap between where they are and where they think they should be. And this happens to women all the time. In order to survive in male-dominated industries and have the audacity to thrive, we're constantly, unlike them, by the way, looking at how I can improve myself to prove myself. And for those who are not watching, I just made a goofy face to make the point that this is a very goofy way to think. Instead, we should think about our gains. We should think about our leverage. We should think about what we do have already that already makes us more than worthy, 10 million times more worthy. You know, there's a very, very famous stat that women will not apply for a job unless they're at least 80% or feel 80% qualified, or that they meet 80% of the qualifications for the job. Men will apply if they meet 10% of the qualifications. So I like to say, you're already ahead of the game. You are already ahead of the game. Sit down, write a list of why you are qualified and what makes you really outstanding, instead of observing the gap that you think or perceive you have, and watch what happens. You will start to truly operate from the truth of your worth. The truth of your worth.
I love that. Wow. So as far as breaking these things down into practical wisdom for everyone that's listening, what would you say are some daily practices or mindset, shifts that you recommend to women who are starting to question, their always on hustle? I got to do this, I got to do that.
There are two very practical things I can give you, and no, they're not meditate and sleep more, which is nonsense advice for people who are in this cycle. The first is to interrupt your reactivity with pausing. In other words, learn to think slowly and learn to respond slowly. And one of my main hacks is in the book. It's called the pause principle. And it's meeting a challenge basically with the question, is that true? Or meeting a challenge with the question, is the problem, or is my reaction going to be a bigger problem? In conversation with someone, when a conversation is triggering you, you can also buy time and sort through your thoughts by saying, that's an interesting point. I'm going to think about that for a second. In other words, slowing down, because all of us are very fast-paced and very reactive, slightly on the aggressive side, is to learn how to just slow it down. Either slow down the thought with the first two questions I offered here, and the second is to slow down a conversation by buying yourself some time artificially with a question like, I'm going to pray on this for a sec, and I'll get right back to you. This has been an incredible hack for me, because instead of taking the bait and flipping out and just continuing to run my nervous system to the ground, I just try to take a beat, take a moment. The second very, very practical piece of advice I have for you is read more. Now, read more is not like meditate more. Meditation is quite hard to do. It's a difficult pursuit, I would say. Much, much harder than working out or sleeping well. Instead, what you can do that's easy and super duper fun is read books. The best way to do it is get the Audible and play yourself, like a podcast, one chapter per day. There are a couple of things that will happen. Number one, you'll relax yourself. It's very soothing to listen to a great book like Gilded, like You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, which is hilarious, like Martha Beck's The Way of Integrity. They are masterpieces. They are funny. They are well written. Even mine is pretty good. And just one chapter a day is soothing. Number two, the second thing that's wonderful is it literally rewires your brain. It starts by osmosis to affect the way you behave, the way you build, and everything you do therefore turns into a completely different, much better outcome. And number three, it legit makes you smarter. It compounds. Imagine if you listen to just one chapter a day of a book, which means that you would finish a book in about 2 months easily, by the way. Probably actually 1 month if you're only doing weekdays, right? Sorry. And then you do 10 books, 12 books a year, allowing for some breaks. Do you know how much smarter you would be in 5 years than anyone around you? Absolutely anyone around you? That's it. And that's an inner expansion that does not require hustle or effort anymore. And it gives you the biggest advantage in life.
Wow. I love that. Wow.
So slow down and read. That's it.
Slow down and read. Okay. For all of you that are listening and watching this. So what is one small courageous decision that someone can make, this week to begin stepping out of the gilded cage?
Oh, yeah, I know what to say here. It's to say no more. This ends now. The most courageous thing I hope I give you with this book is not the action plan of what to do next. It's the decision I made when I reached my own breaking point. And it wasn't actually an understanding of what to do next, Asha. It was just this ends now. Mm-hmm. That's the most courageous thing you can do. The most courageous thing that you can do is say, this is not good enough for me anymore. I'm done here. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what we're going to do next, but this is not good enough for me. And that is a profound statement to the universe.
Wow. This is not good enough for me. Both.
We're done here.
We're done here. And so for all the listeners that feel like they are torn between ambition and authenticity, how can they start building a more aligned life?
Oh, if you really want to be the most successful person in the whole world, don't chase ambition, chase authenticity. Authenticity is going to make you very, very rich. Mm-hmm. Most people that's my main argument in Gilded is you're chasing the ambition, you're chasing the status, you're chasing the money, you're chasing all of the certain and earthly things. These are incorrect because they are repelling other people and they are exhausting you. They will never work. Just letting you know. Mm-hmm. They're finite. Competitive energy is combustible. But the energy of true faith, true belief in self, mm-hmm. true love of self, true understanding of self, the ability to unleash your true gifts onto the world, that's really attractive. That's the one that's going to succeed and succeed fast.
Wow. Competitive energy is combustible. Wow. I absolutely love that. In a lot of your work, you often speak about a kind of fulfillment. And do you see a spiritual element in breaking free from the performance trap?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The spiritual element is the understanding, the ultimate understanding that we are not flesh and blood, and we are not mortals who are here for material gain. We are spirit embodied. We are bigger than this. It is important to remember that and to live through that, because the gains there are love and compassion and warmth and connection to others. These are bigger things than you're ever going to get from Prada. And believe me, I've tried to find happiness at Prada. It's a really wonderful thing to start to find union with other human beings and spirit exaltation in this lifetime. Because they will never, like I said before, they will never disappoint you.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And how do you personally stay grounded and aligned, especially in this world where we're constantly trying to get rewards for our external success.
I catch myself and I do exactly what I told you all to do. I slow down, giving myself grace, giving myself peace, giving myself time, and I read a lot. I stay in practice.
Wow. I'm actually kind of curious, as a random sidebar, how did you initially niche down into C-suite coaching? Because I'm not even gonna lie, I'm actually fairly new to this term of C-suite coaching.
Well, superstar coaching, let's call it. But I mean, literally, it's not the exact description of my audience. There are young people who are nowhere near the C-suite, who are just so exceptional in their talent. They're intensely focused. And it was very easy for me because it's authentic to me. The best client you'll ever have is a former version of yourself. That is exactly who I was. They are who I was. I am a highfalutin, ultra elite overachiever. And it took me a while to recognize that, Asha. I used to think of myself as a golden retriever. Everybody's going to like me and I'm appropriate for everyone, but it's not true. Those of us who are intensely focused and perhaps a little more, I don't know, status leaning in our previous lives are going to appeal to those who are now. That's it.
Wow, I love that. It's so funny you use the word highfalutin.
Yeah.
Because there was someone that I dated before that literally used to call me that. I'm like, wait, I have not heard that word in a while. Okay, so now let's talk about the book a little bit more. So what would you say was the most challenging chapter of Gilded to write? And why was that?
Well, it's because it's the longest and it was the most detailed and it's the biggest question for people. So I really wanted to be thorough. This book is half as long and twice as good. My husband is a journalist and he always says make it half as long and twice as good. So I really wanted it to be bite-sized and really powerful. But there is one chapter that's very long and took a very long time to write, and that's chapter 7. It's about finding your purpose. Most people are truly seeking for their life's purpose. They really, really wish to know that they are in their zone of genius and that they are doing what they are meant to do around here. And I think, first of all, most people teach this incorrectly or in a way that is very hard for people to understand and receive. And number two, I wanted to be thorough enough to really give people a solid glimpse of what it is versus what it is not. In other words, it's not just inaccurately taught, it's inaccurately described. So it took a long time to write that one. It's full of exercises, unlike the other chapters, but it was worth it because everybody seems to really like that chapter.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's genuinely a part of the human experience is to figure out why are we here?
It's not just part of it, it's the most important part of the human experience. Without it, you will live an unfulfilled life.
Yeah. And how do you hope that Gilded impacts the next generation of leaders, especially women?
The most important thing I hope they get from reading Gilded is the desire to not only live a fulfilling life, but to live a fulfilling life so that they can be good. The most important thing we can help new generations be is good. The only thing that will help us as a humanity, as a species, is goodness. Allowing our goodness is dependent upon people with big hearts and big minds to become as big as possible. And that's really what this book is about. If you want to feel good, you should be good. And if you want to learn how to be good, you should read Gilded. And that's what I would really love to impart to younger people.
I love that. And so if readers were to walk away from, with just one truth from the book, what do you want it to be?
If you want to feel good, be good.
If you want to feel good, be good. Okay, so really quickly, just shooting out these questions. What is one mantra that you live by?
Be easy on yourself. You're doing way better than you think.
You're doing good, sweetie. I love that.
You're doing good, sweetie, like my mom, Kris Jenner, says.
What is one book that changed your life?
The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Ooh, okay. What is your favorite way to reset after a stressful week?
Date with my husband, Ryan.
And what does success look like for you now?
Ryan.
Okay, well honestly, I have learned so much in here. This really, really resonated with me so deeply. I'm sure that it has helped so many of the listeners here that have tuned in to listen to this episode. Keren, you are a rock star And I really, really love this conversation. And honestly, make sure that you guys pick up Gilded, okay? All of the information for Keren's book will be in the show notes down below, along with all of her information of how to get in touch with her and follow her on her socials. Keren, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, my friend. God bless you, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.